Of course, as soon as I hit record, I start hearing the banging from my room. Not sure if you're going to be able to hear that on the video. Anyway, welcome to, I got a free code for a game on WooVit, and so I'm making a video to fulfill my side of the offer. This is Autumn's Journey. This is an Otome game featuring a couple of dragon boys, which sounded right up my alley. It's been a hot minute since I've played a good Otome, so I'm very excited to start this up. If you guys want to see me continue past this first video, make sure you guys are leaving a thumbs up and comments on the video so that I know that this is a game to continue. My obligation is just to make one video containing this, but if I like it or if you guys like it, I'll keep playing it. So anyway, let's go ahead and start. I kind of dig this music. Let me turn that up a bit. Chapter 1, The End of Summer. Now this is cute sounding. Sunlight filtered through the airy birch forest as the lush ferns grazed my boots. I momentarily shielded my eyes before I turned north, treading carefully. The muggy atmosphere that had hung over the past few months was now being replaced by the subtle crispness of fall. Though the trees were still vibrantly green, apple-picking season was fast approaching for the town of Barry. I cheerfully stretched one arm toward the sky, inhaling deeply. And thus my weekly scouting for monsters, bandits, or anything out of the ordinary that may harm local citizens is over.
Right.
Oh, voice acting. Okay. And that concludes my mission. I laughed, wondering why I was announcing my agenda to no one. I guess I always just wanted to say that out loud. Walking around alone does prompt you to monologuing just so you can hear a voice. I just wish I wasn't restricted to freelance work in Barry, though. How long is my training going to last? I am more than ready for knighthood. I can do this. I adjusted the belt holding my sword, making sure the hilt could be pulled out at a moment's notice. Humming, I decided to meander back to the village by following the thin river down the gentle slope. I love the terrain here. Not super rocky, but not entirely flat either. There was always an inclination, and higher up I could get a breathtaking panorama of Barry and its endless orchards. Especially in autumn, when the leaves were so vibrantly red that the entire forest seemed to ignite, and the smell of crisp frost and thick fallen foliage lingered welcomingly. It was then I spotted something entirely out of the ordinary near the riverbank, leaning against a birch tree. Thin birch trees were not exactly known to be comfortable resting spots, and I did not recognize the stranger's attire. Hello? Are you a traveler? Oh god, the music though. His face came into view and I realized he was sleeping, but that's not what caught me off guard. He had beautiful protrusions resembling shale shards jutting out of his long hair, right where someone's ears should be. Or was it a decoration covering his ears? I suddenly wanted to touch them, but I resisted. If he woke up in an untimely manner, it would be awkward to explain. At first I was about to leave, but then I noticed something else rather odd. From a simple glance, I saw no bags, no possessions, or anything else on him. This place was too far away from civilization for a simple afternoon stroll. Was he mugged? And if he had been in Barry previously, I would have known. It was that small of a town. Curiosity won me over. Hello? A flicker of concern passed over my face. I grabbed his shoulder and gave it a gentle shake, finding his lack of response unnerving. I quickly hovered a hand in front of his nose. Sure enough, he was breathing, and I did not see any injuries that would suggest he was knocked unconscious. After some more feeble attempts to wake him, I decided to improvise a camp. I did not want to leave him unattended, and I knew I couldn't drag his body very far. Tossing down my bag, I went to work. The fire crackled merrily on the birch wood as I opened my cloth, which contained a lump of rye bread and hard cheese. Ooh, good choice. We love cheese. Oh my god, I don't know if this is going to show through on the recording, but my little brother's home, and all that his room is Anyway, these were emergency rations lest I was unable to return to Barry. Mother and father were probably worried. Just as I was about to bite into the cheese, I saw movement and glanced up, eyeing the stirring stranger. Setting my food down, I cautiously shuffled over. I'd previously placed his body in a supine position and used my bag as a substitute pillow. Though it was probably more lumpy than anything else, it was better than nothing. Are you awake now? You've been out all afternoon. I was getting worried. I trailed off before I started rambling and watched him curiously as he opened his eyes.
Whoa.
Oh shit. In a split second, he shot up and then clumsily fell back. I caught his arm to steady him. Whoa, take it easy. You just got up. He flinched from my skin contact, and I hastily let go, retreating slightly. I didn't get any sense of hostility, but he certainly seemed bewildered. Who are you? There was an uneasy edge in his voice, not quite one of panic, but more of anger. It was then I noticed his eyes were a brilliant amethyst hue, contrasting with his earthy hair tones. Better to remain calm. Aurelie, I found you in the woods outside of Barry. The surprise did not leave his eyes. They darted quickly to his hands, which then covered his face. Lastly, he ran his fingers through his brown hair. The horror on his face was so unsettling that I dumbly sat there for several seconds before mustering the courage to address him again. Are you alright? Obviously not, but I wanted a better grasp of the situation. He attempted to sit up again, but this time I was prepared. Again, he was repelled by my touch, and I gave up the desire to help him that way. He still appeared unstable, but ceased his sudden movements at least. He actually did it.
The hell?
He just fucking said it. I love it. He clutched at his temples, his fingers grazing over the odd fixations in place of his ears. He wobbled as he tried to stand, and I impatiently rushed to his side. Stop it. You obviously can't move in your condition. You might as well sit down and clear your head. What's going on? Who are you and what are you doing here? He looked at me as if he was registering me for the first time since asking who I was. Everything about him screamed overwhelmed, and he simply grit his teeth in frustration. Ooh, okay, so... You hungry? I decided to find another angle to help him open up, and I did not consider myself intimidating, but it was possible he had no desire to answer anything. Are you hungry? I softened my voice and returned to my spot by the fire. I grabbed the cloth and genuinely offered him the rye bread and cheese. He only arched an eyebrow in disgust. What is that? It's food. You chew it? I ripped off a piece of dark bread and demonstrating, humming delightedly to show that it was edible. He scoffed and averted his eyes.
I don't care.
I don't want it. It looks revolting. Sorry my peasant food does not please my lord's tastes. His attitude was rubbing off on me. Calm down. If anything, he's hiding that he's scared. He did just wake up in a foreign place. Are you nobility? He fell silent, and only an occasional crackle of the fire and hooting of owls interrupted the stillness. I leaned back and ruminated over my meal, careful to leave some food untouched in case it changed his mind. There was that apple tart, too. I'll save it for later. I wrapped up the cloth, only vaguely aware that the stranger was examining my every movement. It nettled me slightly, but I decided not to comment. I did not want to do anything that would cause him to raise his guard even more. It was now dark, and I occasionally fed the fire, getting the feeling I was going to be spending the night. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally spoke up. Who are you again? Aurelie. I'm from the town of Barry. And you? Care. He reluctantly uttered the name, gazing into the fire. He seemed much calmer now. And how did you get here? His lips curled, almost smirking knowingly. You probably wouldn't believe it if I told you. You have unusual eyes and a strange fashion accessory you wear over your ears. I think I can find your story credible. He flexed his hand, scrutinizing his fingers carefully. I didn't come here willingly. Out of all the places, I don't see why he decided to drop me in this low-born, simplistic... Care? He glared at me as if offended that I had addressed him directly. So, where are you from? I'm not particularly tied to any region. If it's not obvious already, I'm not one of you. He tapped his knee petulantly. I'm one of the dragons. An earth dragon. He stated it full of pride with no ounce of humility. Dubiously, I inspected him from head to toe, taking note of the stone-like juts for ears and his remarkable eyes. He balked under my stare, but quickly regained his dignity. His eyebrows furrowed fiercely. So, why would an earth dragon be here? It's not because I wanted to, baka! He blurted it out angrily, then touched his unique ears for comfort. I sighed, then tilted my head from side to side as I absorbed his explanation. Alright, I'll admit I'm not exactly accepting this as feasible, but I'm not dismissing it either. You can't transform back? If I could, do you think I would remain in this pathetic body? So weak. I instinctively patted my sword hilt to counter that remark, but stopped when I saw him attempt to stand again.
Whoa.
It was like watching a toddler take his or her first steps, but instead of cutely coaxing, I was fervently discouraging his efforts. We've already established that you're unfamiliar with your form. Besides, it's too dark to wander around aimlessly. I'll find a walking stick for you and we can return to Barry if you'd like. It'd feel wrong if I abandoned you in this state.
I don't need your help.
I don't need your help. Are you saying I can't handle myself? I'm pointing it out. Realizing we were both escalating our voices, I looked away in a huff, not wanting to have our encounter turn sour so rapidly. An altar. I need to find an altar. Your heavenkind worship us, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the dragonkind were here first, so it's only natural we pay our respects. I admit, I thought dragons were more divine and irreproachable. Kara was definitely giving me a different impression. I need water. I barely knew anything about the dragonkind. Though. They focused on their own affairs. You will take me there. It was a plain statement, not a suggestion nor a plea. Why an altar? They're all heavenkind made. How would it help you? He parried my questioning exasperatedly. It doesn't matter. Do you know where one is?
Yeah.
Yes, there's not one far from here. There's a cave that leads to it. Relief washed over his face, and for once his scowl vanished. Good. We should go there this instant. He obstinately tried to stand up again, but I lunged forward and firmly sat him back down. He gave to me in disbelief, but my will was as stubborn as his. Morning. We will do this in the morning. Get some sleep, and I'll find an ideal walking stick. I don't think you'll master bipedalism without some assistance, especially not in a day, and it'll be difficult if I have to physically support you the whole way there. So, just take it easy tonight. I'll even keep watch while you sleep. After my entreatment, he fell silent and gave a reluctant nod, closing his eyes wearily. I sighed gratefully, feeling moderately triumphant over that battle of pig-headedness. As Kara was grumbling, I leaned over and pulled a small blanket out of my bag. The temperature was still pleasant, even at night, but it could cool rapidly, especially since it was the end of summer. After returning some items to my bag, I reshaped it so it was a passable pillow again and offered it to Kara, who seemed puzzled by its purpose. Believe me, you'll need something comfortable or you'll have trouble sleeping. Worse, you'll wake up with a sore back and getting to the altar will be even more troublesome. You already slept on it once. I think you can figure out how to support your head with it again. I laughed sheepishly at my own stab at lightening the mood, but I could tell it wasn't working for Kara. Disgruntled, he lay down on his side and experimented with a few positions before resting his head in satisfaction. At first, he refused to use the blanket, but as the temperature dropped, he discreetly pulled it toward him when he thought I wouldn't notice. Probably to hide his expression, he rolled over so his back was to me in the campfire. I had the feeling the initial shock took a lot out of him, and I admittedly hadn't helped when he ruffled my feathers more than once. Now that he was sleeping, though, any irritation I still felt dispersed along with the summer heat. I would need to be mentally and physically prepared for tomorrow. Stay cool and collected as autumn. I poked the fire and stayed on my watch until exhaustion beguiled me into resting my eyes for just a few minutes. And there goes the booming again. Hey. Oh, please. I've had less sleep than you and I'm already energized and ready to go. Pouting, I poked Kara with some more of the walking stick I had fashioned for him. It hadn't been easy to find a sturdy stick in a birch forest, but I located a long one that would suffice. I had spent the morning carving off any bark that had even indented the top to make it easier to grip. Now it was my dragon prod. Up! Arise, sacred dragon!
Whoa!
Cut that out! Kara hastily shut up, throwing off my blanket in a feeble attempt to hide the fact that he had used it. I decided to counter his usual scowl with the perkiest, most cheerful grin I could muster.
Sorry about that.
Good morning! My buoyancy was genuine. For some reason, it satisfied me to know that my vivaciousness irked him. I could use my sunny disposition to my advantage. It'd be better than snapping at him at any rate. Stop poking me with that.
You're welcome.
It's your walking stick. Here, you're welcome. I turned it sideways and offered it to him. He warily gazed at it as if I was presenting a cobra instead, but carefully grasped it. Firmly grasp it in your hand. Cautiously, he pressed the stick against the ground as he stood up. I remained close, lest he topple over like yesterday. His fingers drummed against the carved handle, and he looked at me quizzically. You spent time on this.
Right.
Well, I wanted to finish it off with a pretty flowing ribbon, but I had the feeling you wouldn't like it. Grumbling, Kara took a step forward, leaning on the stick before hesitantly taking another. Which each step, he regained some confidence, and soon he was walking in a straight line, albeit with an uneven gait. He could not exactly break into a run, or even a brisk stride, but it was a huge improvement from last night. I estimated we could reach the cave leading to the altar by mid-afternoon. I quickly packed and followed him, since I had the feeling the only thing on his mind was that altar. It's this way. I pointed toward the gentle incline, and Karen narrowed his eyes resentfully. Going downhill would probably be difficult for him. As we headed toward our destination, I kept my distance at first, but I gradually grew toward Care, one hand extended in anticipation of a stumble. Care balked and increased the distance between us, determined to progress on his own. However, his pace was excruciatingly slow, and he was unwilling to start any small talk. As the slope gradually steepened, his footing became more unsteady, and I worryingly grabbed his arms for support.
Whoa.
What? He twirled around in surprise, and I actually did end up bracing him. Once he was stable again, I sighed. Look, I know you don't like me touching you, but if your priority is to get to that altar as soon as possible, I think you can swallow your dignity and accept my help. Besides, no one is around to see.
I don't need your help.
You've done enough. I don't need any more help from you. Him.
He shifted his weight and started using the stick to ward me away. I frowned disapprovingly. Hey, if you try to hit me with that thing, I'll confiscate it. Even I wouldn't do something like that. Gritting his teeth, he leaned heavily against one of the birch trees. When I get back, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Who? My master. His curt answer stalled the torrent of questions piling up in my head. It would be poor of me to interrogate him when he was still obviously overwhelmed by the situation. Right now, the goal was more important.
Right.
Then let's get you to that cave. You believe me. Everything I told you. Maybe you're just a very convincing actor, but I think even an actor would drop the charade after a while. Just as I was about to reach for him again, a low grumble pierced the forest. I glanced at Karen in amused bafflement. He averted his eyes, but I could tell he was embarrassed. You know, if you're hungry...
Shut up.
I'm not! Another complaint from his stomach. I think you'll be able to walk faster if you have something to eat. What do dragons eat anyway?
Annoying.
Meddling heavenkind. I rolled my eyes. Well, you have a heavenkind stomach now, and I doubt it'll agree with a diet like that. But it does make sense that you wouldn't want to try the bread or cheese. I doubt dragons thresh rye or run dairy farms. It was then that I remembered the apple tart. Even if Care found the pastry tart detestable, the fruit would probably be familiar to him. I urged him to sit down. When he refused, I simply made myself comfortable on the ground first. Here, this is the closest thing I have to something found in nature. I could forage, but that would take even longer. What is that? It's a pastry. My dad owns a bakery. You probably won't understand that. It's basically a treat with apple filling and I think some apricot jam. Thankfully, my dad preferred showing off the natural ingredients. As a result, the top of the tart had thin slices of appetizing fruit covered with a lustrous yellow glaze. Care sniffed it warily. It must have been agreeable enough, and soon he accepted the pastry. You're welcome. As soon as he started nibbling on it, he must have realized how famished he really was, because he quickly devoured the entire tart. I watched as he coughed silently and wiped crumbs off his mouth, but his expression was unreadable. So, how was it? Anything tastes fine when you're starving. Or you just inhaled it so fast you didn't actually taste it. Well, it should tide you over until we reach the altar. Kara grabbed his stick and we resumed our trip. The extra sugar boost seemed to lift both the pace and his mood, though we stayed taciturn. Welcome to I Can't Read. As we continued through the forest, I stopped and groaned when I spotted some dark trees.
Oh no.
Those are Yelfban trees. Completely forgot. We should probably go around them. Yelfban. He peered at the thick, gnarled trunks. What, scared of the bark? It'll be quicker if we continue in a straight line. No, it's not about the trees. It's about what lies in them. They make perfect necks for avatarals.
The hell?
Same. The hell are those? Those giant bird things. I thought you would know them. I would if I understood your names. Why are you giving new names to everything anyway? We dragons were here first, and we've already established. I raised my hand to silence him, not wanting to make any unnecessary noise. He scowled, but a shrill cry startled both of us. Then what do you call that?
Whoa.
Usually food. Well, that'll be us now. I perched on one of the lower branches. Was a reptilian bird with scales running down its front. The rest of its body was covered in earth-toned feathers. Though probably no taller than 4 feet, its extremely wide wingspan and sharp talons made it a fearsome animal to encounter in the wild. Avatarals raised young way into the fall, so the mothers would be extra territorial this time of year. The bird ruffled its plume, making itself seem larger than it was, and prepared to launch itself at us. I immediately stepped in front of Care, gripping my sword as I took a defensive stance. With Care's condition, an instant retreat wouldn't work. I'd have to guard him.
Whoa.
What are you? You're not planning to fight it, are you? Do we have a choice? Look out! I shoved Care off balance. Thanks to my quick reflexes, we narrowly avoided a slash from the Avaterial's talons. The wind whipped up my hair as debris flew up around us. I scrambled to my feet and sprinted forward, hoping to keep the Avaterial's attention away from Care. As it dove toward me, I slashed upward. It veered away, dodging my counterattack. Care, I'll keep it busy while you get away.
Bring it.
Are you stupid? I'm not leaving you behind. Care, I need you to take me to that altar. Maybe if you shouted the directions at me, I could get there alone. I'm kind of busy here. I can't get my bearings in the middle of a battle. My aggravation was the incentive I needed to keep the Avaterial at bay. However, my training had never covered aerial attacks, and the bird's scaly front was like armor.
The hell?
Are you holding back? Well, it's just protecting its young. It's trying to kill you. You'd think I haven't noticed. Oh, for the wings, clip them. It won't hurt them. It'll stop them from flying. Just clip the tips. I widened my stance as I prepared for another attack. At the last second, I leapt to the side, slicing at an angle. My sword beautifully sheared the Avaterial's slip primary feathers. The monster swerved into the ground, its shoulder and head bearing the brunt of the crash. It let out a cry, and I felt a split second of guilt. That vanished with a yelp as the bird tried to tear me down with its talons. Luckily, the Avaterial was designed for swooping down at prey rather than running on the ground, so it could only hobble awkwardly. As it screeched... Oh, hang on. Oh, it went forward. Luckily, the Avaterial was... Wait, okay, I did that. As it screeched and futilely spread its wings, I retreated, grateful that I was even slower than Care. I wove through the trees until it finally gave up chasing me. Then, sighing in relief, I looped back and returned to Care, who was also at a safe distance. Looks like it gave up, but what about its young? It'll be fine. The feathers will grow back and it can still hop back to its nest. Its babies won't need to eat as constantly at this stage anyway.
Thanks.
You sure know a lot about them. Thanks for the suggestion. He snorted indignantly. I already told you, they're food. Of course I'd know about them. Soon the forest was quiet once again, with only the sounds of our footsteps and the tap of Care's walking stick breaking the silence. Surprisingly, he did not protest when I suggested a safer route, nor when I walked nearly shoulder to shoulder with him. I had the feeling that starting a regular conversation would push my luck, so I kept my mouth shut and instead hoped for no more setbacks. I think my dad's playing Donna Lee. This is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a very deep cave. You simply take a turn and the altar is right there.
The hell?
That's it? No complex mazes, no shiny sacred magic lake with a guardian or anything? Hey, we did what we could. This is a modest altar. I took a deep breath and smiled reminiscently. I haven't been here in years. I think I came before to make the occasional offering around harvest season. I gave Care a cheerful look, but he continued forward, ignoring my recollections. I shrugged and followed, quickly catching up to him. Care awkwardly knelt down before the altar, discarding the walking stick once he was comfortable. His eyes closed with a softened scowl, almost as if he was meditating. Suddenly, his mineral-like ears perked, and he stared directly at the statue. There was no change in atmosphere, but I could tell Care was angry. His hand tightly gripped his knee. I know we're connected. I demand that you remove the stupid curse. He felt silent, and I looked around in bemusement. What, he was talking to someone? But I could not hear the other half of the conversation. For some reason, that made me even more attentive as I tried to piece everything together. You can't be serious, so I said a few things, but... Huh? Yes, I've met one. That's how I found the altar in the first place. He twirled toward me and blinked in confusion, as if studying me for the first time. I stiffened, wondering why he was staring at me so intensely. Once he finally turned away, I relaxed, though I could not help but feel anxious about the discussion. What about me? Weak, pathetic, gives strange names to animals, doesn't seem to know much about Ishtar or how the world works. Ugh. Is he referring to heavenkind in general, or just me? What? I guess the food is half decent or something. What? No. No. You're not sending me on a pointless inspirational quest. I'm not a child. I can't even walk in this form, so your plan is... At that moment, a blinding light flashed from where Care was standing, and I flinched in shock. Whoa, Care! By the time I had knelt down and worryingly grabbed his shoulder, the flash had already disappeared. In one smooth movement, Care removed my hand and stood up without the walking stick. His eyes still seemed focused beyond me, and he slowly nodded to himself. Did your powers return or something? He extended his palm and lurched toward the ground, slamming it against the hard stone. The entire cave shook. The tremor visibly and mentally shook me as well. My heart pounded loudly. I felt so paralyzed that I couldn't even scream. Once I found my balance, I looked bewilderingly at Care, who smugly flexed his unharmed fingers. I stared curiously at his cocksure expression. So... He barely glanced in my direction. It's not exactly what I wanted. However, a portion of my original powers and strength are back, along with my balance. I can actually be comfortable in this form now. He gave a dismissive kick to the walking stick, then promptly walked away from the altar. I mustered a small smile.
Right.
Well, that's promising at least. What will you do next? Do what he ordered me to do and become normal again.
I don't need your help.
I can handle this on my own. Ah. So you don't need to follow me. I had to anyway. There was only one way out of that cave. But as soon as we were in the open air, Care took off running with a grace and speed I'm sure no real Heavenkind could ever replicate. I blinked once, and sure enough, I was alone. I scratched the back of my head, still absorbing what just happened. You're welcome? Burying my head in my hands, I shook out my hair in frustration. Was I expecting something from this? Well, a thank you would have been nice. I tapped my sword hilt for reassurance. It's what a knight does. They help the weak and demonstrate their generosity when it's needed. Well, Care's not weak anymore. He can definitely take care of himself now. I guess my duty is done.
Right.
Mission complete. Just some experience as a reward and a discarding walking stick. Deciding not to linger any longer, I started walking back toward Barry. My parents would certainly be worried by now. Chapter 2, Welcome Back. Okay, well, I think this might be a good place to wrap this up real quick. There, save. I'm gonna save right here. So that was just kind of a first look at this game since I was able to pick up a copy from Woovit. Thank you very much, Radalaika Games. If you guys would like to see me continue this in videos, please feel free to leave some thumbs up and a comment so that I know you're interested. Otherwise, I may just kind of play through some of this on my own. We'll see what happens. But I hope you all are having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys next time for whatever I decide to do next.